All right, so I've brought the colloquium, a paper, which is a chapter in progress on the book I'm writing, which is generally about the history of genetic research in the Middle East. And this chapter specifically is focusing on G6PD deficiency, which is a hereditary enzyme condition. And what I'm interested in this chapter is looking at how the history of medical research on this condition, so namely its clinical aspects, the certain kind of populations that were affected with this disorder, interacted with the interests of scientists who wanted to find out the evolutionary implications of this disease. And so there was an international agenda looking at how G6PD deficiency is related to malaria, whereas locally in Middle Eastern countries, specifically in this paper I'm looking at Iran and Israel, the scientists there were more interested in looking at how certain populations that had this disease were related to national histories. So they're looking at ethnic ancestry and narratives about the origins of the nation, those kinds of topics. Well, one of the larger goals I have in the course of my research is to integrate the Middle East into contemporary histories of science. And so I'm looking to build on similar research that was done on sickle cell anemia, looking at African Americans and populations within Africa, and doing really comparative work to bring the Middle East into these kinds of historiographical discussions. And see what we can learn from this region, how is it similar to other, what we would call developing countries, and what have scientists in that region actually contributed to what Western scientists were doing at the time. So to look both at the local impacts of this research in the Middle East and also to recover their significance for what we would consider modern Western medicine. So building off of my PhD, when I went in doing that dissertation project, I really thought it was basically going to be a history of anthropology. And I went in looking mostly at the research that's been done on anthropological genetics, and then the earlier histories of eugenics and anthropometry, like skull measurement. And what was exciting to me is when I later realized how much actually what we would consider medical history, so history that was not supposed to be specifically relevant to anthropological theories or ideas, how closely integrated these fields really were. So now as I've been trying to revise that dissertation moving forward into papers like this one, this chapter, I'm hoping to bring some of that excitement into the conversation, bring the histories of these two fields back together, really.